Hey everyone. So I've had some requests to do these videos on YouTube in case you're not a Facebook person. So I'm going to go ahead and share what I shared on Facebook today on YouTube. Okay, so recently I asked my followers to fill out a survey about how I can help them get organized and what their biggest frustrations are with organization. And it's been interesting as I've gone through those because so many of the same thoughts are coming up. And it's this idea that, I have tried to get organized before and I don't think I can do it. I have read books and I'll get organized, but I can't stay organized or whatever, right? And I hear this from my clients too. It's kind of like, doesn't matter what I tried, eventually I feel like I end up back in the same spot. And when I hear that, I really hear a lot of discouragement in their voices and some despair and some hopelessness, like things really aren't ever going to get better for good. And I think that's important for us to talk about because I always have clients when I'm working with them ask me, do you understand how this feels? Can you relate? Did you feel like you would never be able to get better at this either? And I think it's good for you guys to know that I have felt that way. I think it doesn't really matter what circumstance made us feel this way. It is always the same thing. That feeling is the same regardless of the circumstance. So I thought I'd share just a little bit about how it is that I feel like I can say something about being discouraged and how I relate to that feeling of trying and feeling like you're never really going to get there. So here's a little bit about my story. It's not one I tell a lot, but I think it's important for you to know. So when I was like in 4th grade, I started to worry that I was going to put on weight. And so I started to exercise. And when I was in 6th grade, I remember overeating once and being so distraught that I'd overeaten so much that I really was mean to myself about it, kind of threatened myself and told myself, you never can do that again, or people aren't going to like you. You're not going to have friends. So like that you cannot do. And so by the time I was in 7th grade, I think that was when I kind of started to like diet a little bit. Like I would restrict my calories and stuff. And then by 8th grade, hunger is real, right? When you don't eat enough, you get super hungry. And so I would overeat. And that just began a terrible cycle for me of undereating and then overeating and being totally unhappy with what I would see in the mirror and just being obsessed with this and not being able to really think about other things. It was always kind of in the background. And, being a teenager and knowing how things get, it's full of emotions and ups and downs and not knowing how to deal with it. I would experience these intense cravings and not understand it and not know why I would give in to them. And just soon starting to feel like I had lost control of the whole situation. And so trying to stop that cycle and not being able to. And after a while concluding, I can't do it. I'm never going to be able to do it. The same kind of discouragement that we were talking about at the beginning of the video. Okay, so what does this have to do with you and getting organized or wherever you're at in your life, whatever kind of disorganization you feel like, whatever kind of discouragement you feel like you might have in your life. And I think this is where it's the same. You guys, I read every book you can read on the subject of overcoming these eating issues. I saw therapists. I resolved over and over again. I thought every single possibility in my mind of what I could do to get better. I prayed every single prayer you could possibly think of to ask for help to overcome this. And yet, inevitably, I would fall into the same cycle again. So if you feel like you have been in this scenario, whether it's from not being able to get on top of life and get organized and really overcome this, or, it could be something different, a relationship problem, a marriage problem, something you worry about with one of your kids. I mean, financial issues. I mean, the list goes on and on of where we feel like we've tried and continue to fail. I think the important thing is to recognize, number one, that you're not alone in those feelings. Our mind really loves to tell us, I don't know what your problem is. Everyone else seems to be able to figure this out, but you're never going to be able to. And that's just not true, because number one, everybody has things they feel this way about. And it just feels really good to know that you're not in this alone. So I wanted to share that, number one. I also want to share a couple of other insights I've gained as I've gone through this experience. And I think the first one is that perfectionism is really our worst enemy. There is something in us that thinks, someday I am going to overcome this to such an extent that for me, I will never have cravings again. I will never overeat again. It will be easy to always just have, my body and my weight under control. Maybe for you, I'm always going to be able, someday I'll be able to always be in control of my life. Everything's going to stay clean and organized. The family's going to comply, whatever. And whatever that fantasy is for you, I think recognize it as that is not reality. I don't think we ever get to the point that there is never any challenge to things anymore. And when we insist on it being that way, when we insist that the solution means that it's never going to be hard again, we just are always kind of waiting for that thing to happen. And we don't show up every day and deal with what needs to be done. I mean, I think we might get by, but we don't show up to the challenge with confidence and enthusiasm. I think we feel kind of defeated and we're waiting to be rescued, and I don't think that helps us. The other thing I want to share is that it's pretty important to get help in whatever it is that you feel like you're struggling in. There are people who have figured this out, and they know how you feel, and they have a skill set that you don't have. And I just remember hitting a point about 10 years ago when I was like, okay, I cannot live like this anymore with these eating issues and the wild swings. I can't do it. I've got to change. And so I prayed the most sincere prayer of my life. God, help me know how to overcome this. And the first thought that I had was to go and see a specific therapist. And I was like, I didn't mean that. I'm willing to do anything, but I don't really want anyone to know about this. It's kind of embarrassing and awkward. So I would prefer to just keep it between you and me. But what I learned is you kind of have to let down your guard. You kind of have to be open and honest about what's happening and be vulnerable about it, because when you let down your guard, that's when the solutions can start to come in. So getting help has been a game changer for me. I think the other important thing in all of this is to recognize how much harder we make it on ourselves and how much further from the solution we get when we think thoughts like, I'm never going to be able to. I just think that becomes so disempowering to us. I know, positive thinking and we know the way we should talk to ourselves, but seriously, there's a direct connection between what we tell ourselves and what happens. And we really just get ourselves further entrenched in the problem when we tell ourselves, you're never going to figure this out. And we've all heard this before, that like if you shouldn't talk to yourself, you'd never talk to other people the way you talk to yourself. But I really want you to take a look at how it is that you talk to yourself about this particular situation, whatever it is that triggers that I'm never going to be able to, this will never get better kind of thoughts. If you had a girlfriend or your spouse or your child, or even somebody you didn't like, if you knew that they were struggling with something and they were ready to put a fresh foot forward and try again, you would never go to them and say, you know what? Good luck, because I've seen you try before and we all know how this is going to turn out. You are never going to be able to do this. You would never talk to somebody like that. And yet you talk to yourself that way, and take a step back and recognize that that is not going to help you. One of my favorite Happy Gal quotes is one that says, be nice to yourself. It's hard to be happy when someone's being mean to you all the time. And I think I just want to wrap up today by saying that discouragement, when we're feeling it, I want you to recognize it is just a feeling. It is not a prophecy about what's going to happen. Sometimes those feelings can feel super intense and super real, but recognize that what feelings are is a chemical reaction. It's a thought that spurs a chemical chain of events in your body that produces a feeling, and that's all it is. So that discouragement and that feeling, if you can acknowledge it and allow yourself to feel it instead of running from it or pretending like it's not happening, if you can feel it, then you give it a chance to kind of just release. And once that feeling subsides, what are you left with? You're left with the circumstance, and you just need to make a choice to do something about it. And I know it's not that simple. You guys, I've been there. I get it. But I think what I want to leave you with today is just the idea that discouragement happens, but it's just a feeling. So go ahead and feel it, but then decide to do something about it anyway. And whatever that is, whether it's getting help from someone, reading another book, putting a fresh foot forward, whatever it is, the other thing I just want to encourage you to do is to be kind to yourself about it and just decide to stop saying, I'm never going to be able to. Don't trap yourself and incriminate yourself with that kind of thinking. So acknowledge that it feels discouraging, but affirm that you're taking a step in the right direction and that you're making progress on it. Everything I'm here to help you do about the change you want to make in your life, the order you want to create, the peace you want to gain, it's going to challenge you a little bit, and it's going to push you outside your comfort zone a little bit. And there are going to be times that you feel kind of discouraged, but I want you to remember what it is that we're doing. We are creating order in your life so that you can be free, so that you can live life the way it was meant to be lived, not reactive, not feeling buried all the time and out of control, okay? So walk through this process with me. You're going to make it. It's going to be fine. Discouragement is a natural part along the way. Feel it, but then move on. And most of all, be kind to yourself. Okay? All right, so it's pretty simple. And get organized so that we can live happy. And that's what I've got for you today on discouragement. Have a great day.